Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to HMP. I hope you're ready for some groovy 60s Italian superhero action as this week we cover Flashman from 1967. I am your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, he counted all the hot Italian women so you don't have to. Please welcome the Hartford Hellion, Sweet John Zakovacs from the internet.
I'm afraid you're wasting your bullets. They only tickle.
And have you seen him in the way he dresses? He looks like a thing from outer space. Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and parasailing is also my favorite mode of transportation.
Oh, man, if you ain't getting there by parasailing, you ain't at least having the most fun you could have in transportation. I'll tell you that much right now. Today, like I said, we are talking Flashman from 1967. What is Flashman? Boy, oh boy, are we going to get into it. You have done yourselves a favor this week. People that support the show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and every single month they get to vote on movies that we watch. And this month, here was the vote for you guys. It was quite the ordeal. Here were the choices. Head of the Family, Darkman 3, Flashman, Brick, and La Samurai. Let's go to the bottom of the bottom. Bruce, I'm so sorry to tell you, my friend, but Head of the Family took home 0% of the votes.
Their loss. Their loss, because now it's going to come up. It's going to be our new surrogates.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see about that.
So we may have to envelop some rules here. Next up, we have next at the bottom here, we got Brick, Rian Johnson's Brick. But above that, the one that Sean thought was going to go all the way, Darkman 3 at 20%.
I did.
Not too shabby, but right behind that, and this was a shootout really here for quite some time because the top three were battling it out quite a bit actually. So La Samurai came in at 27%, but with a resounding 40%, Flashman came in, and I think Ali really had the best one, the best note here, and he said, anyone who is not considering voting for Flashman, please check out the IMDb first. And I gotta admit to you, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Like the second I saw the stupid poster when we were talking about it, I'm like, yep, that's a piece of garbage that we're gonna have to watch at some point. I know that it would be this week, but I knew at some point or another we'd be getting around to this piece of junk because it looked just that good. I mean, for example, though, Marty says, "Oh, dog, it's all this good talk on Flashman, but sorry, got to go to Darkman for me." So Marty wanted some Darkman. But, we got here, and boy, oh boy, are we excited for all that. So if you want to be somebody like our folks over at patreon.com/HMP, who get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, who keeps this show going month after month, year after year at this point, or chiming in here on 8 years and everything, and it's because of you awesome people. And so get yourself some support of this show and more content at the exact same time and help steer the ship, HMP over here. We really appreciate all of that. And if you can't do that, jump over to the iTunes, give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
Oh boy, hadn't been a minute. Been a minute. I'm just gonna say, come on, pick it up. Just get with it. I gotta read something. Gotta have something on the show. We gotta pad a little time, right?
Oh, we don't have to worry about time.
No, we don't. We'll be fine. But again, thank you to everybody that does that. And of course, over at Spotify, they don't have things that you can review, but you can throw stars up in there. Share the show with a friend, whatever you do. We just appreciate you. We're glad that you're here. Let's get into it, boys. Here's the IMDb plotline for Flashman. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say or do. Superhero Flashman, who is secretly a member of the British royal family, battles a host of villains and gangsters, including mafia bank robbers and a gang of beautiful female counterfeiters. This is written by Ernesto Gastaldi. The only thing that he's done that I recognize is a movie called Hands of Steel. Very cool Italian Terminator ripoff. Super cool. Directed by Mino Loy, who directed a lot of movies and stuff. Well, he directed a fair of them. Most I don't think many people would know, but his producing work that a lot of people would know would be Devilfish, Cannibal Ferox, City of the Living Dead, and Tough Guys. That's a movie a buddy of mine, Italian tough guy film expert Mike Malloy. He does a commentary on the Tough Guys DVD commentary soundtracks. That stuff's pretty cool. But yeah, so very interesting selection. I'm happy the patrons picked this one because I think we would have had fun with any of the movies that we had, but I think this one was the correct choice.
This is the one that I believe the term is called a Shanzi fastball. I couldn't believe our
Yes.
luck
This
when I
this
started
felt
watching this.
this felt very much like the kind of thing that really tickles your fancy, Sean.
It's totally my thing,
He said it from
without a
time to
doubt.
time, but this, like, when you're watching it, you're like, this is what we came up with this podcast for, is stupid bull crap like
Yeah.
this movie. So the Patreon people, I think, know us, and they go, yep, that's where we need to send them. Well, if that wasn't
Yeah.
enough, let me sell everybody on this Italian superhero film, because it's got everything. You got this wacky intro that's really just them zooming in and out on pictures and throwing in colors. It was the 60s. It's just what they did. We got Bunsen burners and beakers, the art of miming. Lost art, I say. We get naked in front of your henchmen. It's so Italy that you got scummy dudes and hot ladies galore. You got your invisible robbery and anti-tension helicopter scene. Fights that would make Rudy Ray more jealous. Jaunty flute music. Why? Because our superhero is so rich, he makes Batman look like a pauper. We got an invisible jail interrogation along with the sexiest prisoner uniform I've ever seen. God bless you, Italy. We got human puppetry, helicopters galore, ancient ruins, fun with trains and ships, car from the sky, motorboats and fire, and of course, paragliding. This movie's got everything.
So the biggest question I come away with after having seen this movie twice, why is his name Flashman?
There's zero reasons, because they needed a name and that was the costume that they had, and they're like, what does this look like? Flashman, that sounds right. That'll work.
I can't. I really don't understand that part of it, because especially with those superheroes from the 30s and 40s, like their name meant it was the thing that they did or how they got their power or what have you.
Yeah.
But Flashman, there is no explanation why this dude's name is Flashman. It bothers me.
He's not
I get
fast.
the
He
idea
doesn't fly.
that an Italian guy who didn't quite know what the word Flash meant picked the name because he was familiar with Superman and the Flash or something like that.
Sure.
I really do think that in 1967 they were hoping somebody might buy a ticket to the drive-in because they thought it was about the Flash.
Could be.
Well, I mean, like, look at it, though. If you go all the way then even to, like, the early 2000s with Asylum Film, there were, like, in blockbusters, Transformers ripoffs and stuff that were there to make dumb people, and they very often did, just go, oh, the new Transformer, I'll buy this. It's Transformers with a PH or something, and they just buy it and they watch it,
Yep.
Same diff.
Got my Transmorphers tattoo for a lot cheaper than a Transformers tattoo.
No, that would be hilarious. Is if you go in for a tattoo and they're just like, Transformers tattoo, that's going to be $1,200. But if you want a GoBots tattoo, that's $58.
I will not have the GoBots besmirched on my own podcast.
So let's
Okay,
break this sucker down, man.
We ready to get into it?
Yes.
Here we go. The movie starts the way every good movie should, with a funky theme song and a guy wearing a mask, a cape, and a brightly colored smock, jumping around what I assumed to be the finer parts of England. We get title credits. Are those credits in Italian? Does the Pope crap in the woods? We learn within the first 15 seconds that Paul Stevens is playing the role of Flashman. And who is Paul Stevens, you ask? He's the star of movies with names like Thunder Over El Paso, or His Name Was Holy Ghost, or even Scaramouche. He was an Italian actor, and his real name was Paolo Goslino. And I had never even heard of him until
There was
I
a part
him
of me. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go.
There was a part of me that was really hoping you were going to say it was Dan Stevens' father.
That would be great, because I'm a huge Dan Stevens fan.
His real name is Danielello Steveninsky or something. I don't know.
Paolo Goslino.
Yeah.
My stupid American mouth can't do the accent. I'm sure it sounds a lot cooler in the native Italian.
That's the native Italian.
It's me, I'm Mario.
That's all we know.
Paolo Goslino, this happened a lot with the Italians. They try to fool you with their Americanized names and their sexy, sexy women, but don't be fooled. The opening credits end, which might be the greatest opening credits to a movie ever. And when the movie starts, I'm not going to lie, I was worried. I was worried that we were about to watch something truly awful. We can't all be Adam Portraith. Fortress with his stupid, amazing picks. Most people are like Bruce and I, and lately my picks have been a bunch of pissy turdlingtons. However, I start getting a little optimistic as we get into the action right away. We know we're in London because we see the London skyline right when Big Ben is chiming. What odds? We then cut to the Imperial College of Science and Technology. There's a lab, lots of Bunsen burners and beakers filled with day-glow liquids, and we meet Professor Wright. We know he's incredibly smart because he's wearing a white lab coat, and he just developed a serum that turns mice invisible.
This is
All
great.
of a sudden,
I was
Go
hoping
ahead.
it dissolved mice, to be honest.
Yeah, I love this whole setup for all of this. It tells you what this movie is right away and how goofy
Out of
and
the gate,
stupid
baby.
it is. And again, I love the like when he's grabbing the mouse there and everything, he shoots it up, and then him just kind of miming putting an invisible mouse back in there and stuff. It's so much fun, and I was I wasn't prepared for all. Didn't read anything, and so had zero idea. Invisibility was a big portion of this, and to know that we are going to get a lot of props and stuff on wires and hanging and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So good. We'll get there.
Yeah, I got so many questions when we get there.
I looked into this as much as I could because I want to know everything about this movie now. And basically, there's very few facts about this. One of the very few things I learned was that the writer wanted to make an Invisible Man movie and just wrote it backwards.
I like it.
Isn't that cool?
Is this a good time to talk about Italian films and AVR?
Oh,
ADR?
yeah. Oh,
Because
yeah. ADR.
now this is a bit of trivia that I didn't come up with on my own, obviously. I heard it either on a podcast or on the last drive-in, because that's the only place where I hear these kind of facts. I don't know which one, and I'm not going to put my hand under oath and swear to it. But I picked up the information that for many years in Italy, it was illegal to record synchronized sound on a film set. It wasn't like that it was cheaper to do it the way they did it, or they didn't know how to do it, but it was a Mussolini era law that they could not film with synchronized sound because they needed to have a sensor in the sound booth when they recorded. And rather than having sensors on sets all the time, they wanted to have it scheduled all in one place and do it there. And then they listened to it as they were recording it. So they didn't want something that they didn't approve of to slip through. And then post Mussolini, like the law just stayed on the books until like the 70s. And then also everybody who trained to do it that way, even when it was no longer the law, they were just used to like, don't worry about the accents on your actors. Who cares if we have 4 different languages on set at the same time? It's all going to be in a 5th language by the time we put it out there. But I found that to be a really cool, like interesting tidbit of trivia. Verify it on your own before you go sharing that information. But I just thought that was a cool bit of trivia that it was actually illegal to record synchronized sound in Italy.
I would also like to think that if we just, I just want to start making up film facts and stuff. Abraham Lincoln was the DP on the French Connection. Don't look it up. I mean, or
that can't be true.
Maybe you might want to look it up before you start spreading that around the playground and everything. But that's what I'm to understand.
All right, so back to it. So we're turning mice invisible when all of a sudden a janitor who looks like Italian Bing Crosby walks into the room, and right away, there's something off about this guy. He's asking a lot of questions about Professor Wright's new formula. Why do you always work so late? How does the formula work? Are you certain that the serum works on humans? This janitor doesn't have enough personality to be asking important questions. He's not Goodwill Hunting or Stanley Spadowski. That reference is for 2 people. He's just a dude in a jumpsuit. As Professor Wright starts explaining how the serum works, I think it's time to check in with our resident doctor to see if the theory checks out. Bruce, Professor Wright says the following line: "My serum crystallizes the cells of the epidermis so that they absorb light rays and emit them without any deviation from the opposite side of the body." So, Bruce, on the scale of Hollywood garbage medical jargon, with all of Stan Lee's garbage medical jargon being a 10 and Orphan Black's garbage medical jargon being at a 1, where does that line land on garbage medical jargon?
I'm just going to say that, at least they're making an attempt. It's not just the serum makes you invisible. And they're actually getting the physics right. Instead of saying you can see through it, they're saying it's absorbing the light from one side and projecting it on the other, which is how like an invisibility kind of cloak works, or like a Halloween gag that they have where you have an iPad in the front and an iPad in the back, and it looks like you can see through your stomach. So, I mean, it makes sense, even though, I don't know in practical terms how well it would work. I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
where
wow.
that's
Okay.
where I
Three.
would have
I'll
fallen.
give it a 3. 3 is good,
Three.
right? I'll
Three's
give it a
good.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I'd put it the same. I was kind of shocked. I was like, you know what? That's for a stupid Italian superhero movie. That ain't a half bad explanation.
It isn't bad. Okay, moving on. This Italian Bing Crosby janitor shoots him in the back. You know what? I don't think that guy's a real janitor. He calls up his goateed goon who's brought explosives. They set him. They leave the building, and as they're driving away, Italian Bing Crosby asks him, "Are you sure those explosives will blow up a body?" His goateed henchman says, "Oh, yeah." Italian Bing Crosby produces a remote control, presses a button, and a still photo of the Imperial College of Science and Technology explodes. Both these villains have a laugh, and Italian Bing Crosby says, "Perfect. Now the secret to invisibility is safe," and they drive away.
What?
I love the can-do attitude of this era of Italian filmmaking. Like specifically Italian filmmaking had this certain can-do attitude. Like, how are we going to blow up a building? Oh, we'll just shoot some fire through a photograph. I love it. It inspires me.
We then cut to the world's most opulent hideout, where Italian Bing Crosby meets up with his sweaty gang. While they've been waiting, they've been playing cards and smoking and drinking while dressed in suits, like all criminals in the 60s used to do. Italian Bing Crosby injects himself with the invisibility serum. At first, nothing happens, but wait 30 seconds, he becomes invisible. And we see the first real breathtaking special effect of this movie. We see a cigarette floating in midair as if no one is holding it.
How did they do that?
It's definitely not done with animation. And some crew guy blowing smoke into the camera frame.
Is that how they did it, animation?
Yes. On that
Oh,
particular
okay.
one, yes.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
a
because I
couple.
want to know how each effect was done, because I'm trying to take notes here. I've got a
We're gonna
great
get there.
idea.
I promise you. When I notice it, I'll let
Now
you know.
the guy, I got a question for you though. I want to make sure I understood that when he was testing the invisibility stuff, he's totally hanging dong in front of his guys, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Why doesn't he do like a normal person where you take it first, make sure you're invisible, then take your clothes off?
I
guess
really-
it'd be too hard
he
on
likes-
the special effects.
He likes a little bit of domination over his crew. Let him know
I mean,
who's
he is-
boss.
I was gonna say.
He is Italian. He's probably, not so bad down
Yeah,
there.
he's not. What, and also he's not. They're a liberated group. They're not all stuck up like we are here.
I feel like 3 of the last 5 weeks we've had movies that involve hanging dong too. So we got to move away from that a little bit.
Yeah, but at least
Maybe
this
we
guy-
should name the podcast that.
hanging dong.
Hanging down. Doing the dangle with the nasty boys. So one of Italian Bing Crosby's sweaty goons declares, "We're gonna be millionaires," as we cut to the back of a bank where for some reason people sit in a room and count money all day. Some lady who's a 60s British 10, but a 60s Italian 7 walks into the room and starts making smacky face at one of the guys counting money. She steals a fat stack of cash and replaces it, as they say in the film, with a stack of counterfeit British money. We then see her walk from the bank to her apartment. And at this point, again, I'm concerned that this is the moment the movie's going to start shifting down and become what most Italian movies do, which is to steal a cool idea from America, then ruin it by completely wasting your time. However, what ends up happening is that the English bird enters her apartment. It's a grimy crap heap of a place with filthy walls for some reason. Poor people hate cleaning their house. But then she presses a lever on her sink and the wall to the bathroom opens up. And there's an entirely different apartment behind her bathroom. She's got a hidden apartment in her apartment. That's some Spider-Man and his amazing friends level cool right there.
Why? I mean, just so much extra work. I mean, obviously for the coolness of the movie and everything or whatever, but Okay,
I'm
weird.
also the kind of guy, like if I'm living in an apartment and I say your door is like 40 feet from my door, but my apartment's only 12 feet wide, I'm wondering what's going on in that extra space in your apartment. I'm going to be
Yeah.
investigating. Also, I don't know, you may not have this experience so much, Sean, but I'd say me and Adam could see the idea that if we are sitting at a desk counting a large amount of money and a hot chick comes up and starts smooching on us, it ain't about us. It's about the money. We know what she's there to do. So we're like watching it like hawks, right?
Same with me too, buddy. I'm in that same camp.
Wait a second. Hold
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. If we're
Something-
out in a if we're out in a bar and an attractive woman walks up to us and tries to buy us a drink, we immediately put our hands over our kidneys and say, "Get away, get away."
I do like you'll come across like a TikTok every once in a while where somebody's doing like a quote unquote social experiment and the guy will like see it right off the bat, like a pretty girl goes, "Hey, how are you today?" And like dude just like straight goes, "Is this like a social experiment thing?" Like he sees it right off the bat. He's just
That's
like, "Nope,
awesome.
nope, I'm scoping you from a million miles away. This kind of girl don't never talk to me for any reason whatsoever. I'm not falling for it."
But I
That's
am
awesome.
immediately all about Smithers as soon as we meet Smithers. And I like to think that there's a
Hey, hold
world-
on there, buddy.
Okay.
We're getting there. We are going to get there, I promise you. And it's not going to be good.
No.
So only her apartment is better than Spider-Man and his amazing friends because it's filled with hot British birds. One of them is clearly supposed to be a white lady pretending to be Asian, and it's offensive, but it's not offensive enough to laugh at.
I
Which
don't
is a
know. I
shame.
thought that one lady was Asian though.
No,
No?
really not.
I mean,
They
because
go on
I had the same thought at first, but I was like, well, maybe she. I don't know.
She is not, sir.
Okay, fair enough.
I promise you.
Maybe
They
I didn't
got-
watch her.
These British birds go on about how their diabolical plan is working, and out of nowhere, the lady we saw from the bank smacks another lady in the face and says, "Are you trying to get us caught? You suck at this." And she tells a couple of the other birds to take her away. And they do so. And we never see any of them again, ever.
It was so sad because it was the hottest part of the whole movie. All
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like
We
need
cut
like, could you
again.
get to this 4 or 5 more times, please?
We cut again to the back room of the bank, and everyone is going home for the day except this one guy because he just loves counting money. We see the door open as if has a mind of its own, and then the door closes. We start to get a bad feeling about the situation, but don't worry, not to worry. Banker keeps a gun loaded and ready to fire, sitting on his desk out in the open for safety. But immediately, the gun raises as if it were magic, and a voice out of nowhere says, "Put the money in the bag." The banker starts to behave like Jerry Lewis for some reason, produces a white sack like out of a cartoon, and he begins loading the money into this white sack. Our second brilliant moment of special effects happens here because the filmmakers are attempting to convince you that Italian Bing Crosby is invisible. In close-ups, you can see the reflection of the glass the gun is taped to. And when it's a wide shot, it's a gun on a string. We're 17 minutes in.
I'm heartbroken because I was so impressed. I didn't see the string in the glass. That's a good idea. I never even thought about the glass in order to not have to have a string.
We're 17 minutes into the movie. We haven't seen Flashman yet, and I don't care. This movie has my attention. The Invisible Man opens up a window, throws the sack of money into a waiting pickup truck below, and the truck speeds off. Security guards show up, and they don't believe this banker when he says an invisible man showed up and stole the money. The guards are about to take him in when the banker jumps out the window, even though they're 4 stories up. The guards rush to the window, and one of them says the line, "He's disappeared." So you know the banker isn't dead. We cut back to the world's most opulent hangout, and the sweaty gang are counting their loot when all of a sudden, Flashman crashes through one of these amazing windows of their hideout, and all the henchmen start yelling, "It's Flashman!" Like everyone already knows who he is, even though we've never seen him before.
Love
And
it.
it's at this very moment, we're 18 minutes, 50 seconds into the film, when I realize that Flashman is the Italians attempting to steal the 1966 Adam West Batman. That is exactly what this entire movie is. Those lousy Italians.
It's
with
the
their
right year and everything.
Those lousy Italians with their fly-by-night movie studios and their sexy, sexy women. Anyway, Flashman is jumping around and throwing guys at other guys as mod instrumental music plays in the background. And just then, Italian Bing Crosby pulls out a machine gun and unloads on Flashman. But hold on. Turns out Flashman wears a bulletproof suit. And this is when we get to my favorite line of the movie. I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm afraid you're wasting your bullets. They only tickle. The sweaty henchmen keep fighting with Flashman, and we see Flashman wrestle with and then throw a dummy out a window. It's amazing.
It was awesome.
A convincing
It's
dummy.
amazing.
Super convincing and really realistic.
Oh man, I'd
It's-
like to jump in with a couple of points there too while we have a pause.
Please, please, please.
First off, when Smithers goes for the window, that seems so out of left field. I still don't know what this movie is. That I loved it. I'm like, you know what? I would love to be a banker. And when the cops come to arrest me, I just jump out the window because, they're on like the third floor. And then Flashman breaks into the thing and he just storms on the scene in such a way I had to pause the movie and look up to see if like people were supposed to know who Flashman was already. Like I was worried I had a huge European blind spot, like this was the fourth Flashman movie or something like that.
Oh, you know
no.
me. I had to check on that too. I'm just like, are there more Flashman stuff out there? Is there anything that I'm not aware of? What is this?
That is, hey, if you're watching specifically Warner Brothers, that's how you introduce a hero. Just throw him into the fight and say, what?
Listen, we'll give you 5 movies and then we'll do an origin story, okay? Shut up.
We think Italian Bing Crosby is escaping in a helicopter, but he has it rigged with explosives. And as Flashman jumps onto the helicopter in midair, he notices that Italian Bing Crosby isn't in the helicopter and escapes, just as Italian Bing Crosby blows it up. We know this.
Just as this is my favorite part of the entire film, is how badly this is all timed and edited. It is just atrocious. It is anticlimactic in the biggest and baddest ways. It provides the biggest plot hole of the entire thing. It's like, were you not watching? It's like, hey, a helicopter blowed up real good. You saw like a body go out 5 seconds before the explosion happened, dog. How did you? And not like it wasn't like there was a whole lot of other action going on and he didn't see or whatever. This is a helicopter in the middle of nowhere and it's one single dude plopping down in the middle of nowhere. Tick, 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 tick. Then the explosion happened.
Hey.
How about you edit this to where I feel a little bit of danger?
Couple more things too. I love how he just uses your basic label maker to label the autopilot.
That's
just
great.
In case anybody needs to know.
Yep.
And all I can think when I'm watching this go down is that bag that has the money in it doesn't look big enough to be worth blowing up a self-flying helicopter. Like I think, you know what I mean? It is not enough. The self-flying helicopter worth way more than whatever's in that bag.
True. Very true.
It's
Nice
just a
catch. I did not
$15
catch that
switch.
part. So we know that Flashman has escaped from the exploding helicopter because we see a dummy dressed as Flashman holding the sack of stolen bank money jump into the Thames. I am now, and will forever be from this point forward, a fan of Flashman. We cut to Flashman in a boat that he just has for some reason, and he pulls up to a beautiful riverfront walk-up that he leisurely walks into as he lets the boat just keep going as he walks off of it. I need to break into the story for a second here to say that while the story of the movie really trucks along, it's really the weird little touches of this movie that totally sell it for me. Like, for instance, is Flashman at this scene here, as Flashman's walking up to his home, there's a dog just walking up the street for no reason, a lone dog. And earlier, while we're in the bank, there's an old man wearing sunglasses inside. He isn't blind. It's never mentioned why. And at the beginning of the movie, when the invisibility serum is being tested on a mouse, there's just the one mouse. There's not a single other animal to be found in that place. It's like nice, weird little touches like that to make this movie fun to watch.
That's to imply that serum works really well. This is test subject 2000. That place is teeming with animals.
There's so many mice around here, you just don't see them. I thought this place smelled really bad for only having one mouse in it.
What we need is an invisible snake.
Invisible snake and mice are just going at it. You're walking around just bumping into snakes.
Back to the movie. Flashman walks into his home, and there to greet him is his butler, weirdly enough, named Jarvis. And they exchange pithy comments back and forth. And we meet Flashman's sister, who is never not modded out in clothes from head to toe, complete with dumb face makeup that I'm sure is doing it for somebody, just not me. And she says things like, "I get my kicks by dressing kinky, man."
Yeah, like this is
really
Austin Powers
like
degree.
She's straight out of the Gold Member. What's that guy called? Austin Powers.
Yeah, it's so good, and her outfits through all the scenes are just fantastic. She looks like, he said it, like she's from space, and like, you know, in 1967, yeah, this broad looked like she's from space. But
I feel like they were going for something with her that they didn't quite get to. I feel like they didn't get weird enough.
What are you talking about? She had like a sun visor made out of whatever the hell that was.
That was pretty amazing. That little hat with the red sun visor.
It's like she's going to go weld, but only with a really tiny welding.
She's got that, and then all the rings on the exact same. Like what? She's got some style. Like they made some choices. I like it.
Adam, you're never going to win this argument with Bruce. We're talking to somebody right now who, when he saw that guy who had the money, the government's giving out free money ads, he was like, I wonder where he gets his suits.
He's like,
you're never going to win this.
Roberta, get me Matthew Lesko's number stat.
So, where are we? Flashman's sister has been reading through newspapers, and it turns out that newspapers think Professor Wright had an accident, but Flashman doesn't. He knows that foul play was involved. We also meet Flashman's servants, who are dressed like the bad guys in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Okay, let's stop here for half a second. This is one of the great things. Like I said, he makes Batman look poor. This guy walks in, he's got butlers galore. Everything is there. And he sounds like Peter O'Toole. That's another thing that I want to like. Flashman really sounds exactly like Peter O'Toole. He's got that cadence and everything. It's like not, but nearly foppish, but close, you know, but not. It's like he's right on that cusp and everything. He's great.
I thought two things when I saw this. Number one, I thought it'd be cool to be born wealthy, because I would have tried to be a Flashman if I had a butler. Like, that's the only thing stopping me when I was younger from attempting to be a vigilante, was the lack of a butler. And then number two, I started thinking like how cool this would be if it turned out to be like a Moon Knight thing, and Smithers and Flashman and the rich guy are all just like multiple personalities and we don't know what's real.
Holy cow. For a movie that's kind of hard to follow at times, I could only imagine what throwing that wrench into this thing would be like. So remember the banker from earlier, the one who started to act like Jerry Lewis when confronted with physical violence? Turns out it was just Flashman in disguise.
Wow.
He was trying, I know it. He's trying to catch a counterfeit ring and figured out it was that English bird with the secret apartment in her apartment that was doing it. Man, that Flashman is something else. What can't this guy do? We're 25 minutes into the movie, and now I think Flashman might be my favorite superhero ever.
He gets a job. He goes through the employment process because he thinks some shadiness is going down, allows said shadiness to go down because he wants to see where it goes. And then it goes, and like, he's practically creating his own crime.
I feel like they missed an opportunity to have the bad guy realize he stole counterfeit money. Like I thought there was a golden opportunity that got missed there.
I thought that's where it was headed too, and I'm kind of surprised by all of the dead dead plot threads that happen in this movie too. Like, it seems like with all those smoking hot ladies in the apartment, hidden in the apartment, it seems like that was supposed to go somewhere, and they just killed that scene.
I love everything in that apartment.
It's on the floor or something, the editing room floor.
I feel like the ladies found out what they were expected to do in order to get more screen time, and they said, no, thank you.
I think it was like, we lost the pages. We no shoot anymore. Go on to the next scene. No one noticed. Put the hot girl in.
We cut to Scotland Yard, and they're interrogating the British bird, and I immediately get a bad feeling about a character named Inspector Baxter. And it happens in this scene immediately. He's bumping into people. I'm guessing he's supposed to be the comic relief because goofy comic relief music starts playing. His moments are really the only moments in this movie that are really hard to sit through. Anyway, Scotland Yard thinks she's in on the robbery, and they search the bank lady's apartment looking for the missing butler, but find nothing. Remember, the cops don't know about the hidden apartment inside her apartment. They're about to leave when Flashman, disguised as the banker, comes out of the bathroom with the sack of stolen loot and says, "You got me, coppers." And I'm not going to lie, I was surprised as hell at this part. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is happening already. Amazing.
She could have freaked out a little bit more because I feel like if you just all of a sudden there was somebody in your house that you had no clue about, you'd be, she's a 3 when she should be a 9.
And I'll also say that Peter Sellers, I think they were really trying to milk a little Peter Sellers in this guy because the Pink Panther had been made a few years before.
Well, and you got all the Saint stuff.
Sir, you're no Peter Sellers.
The cringiness was appealing to me because I'm the kind of guy that likes to stare at the car wreck sometimes. Yeah, so I totally know what you mean about the cringiness, but I was really rolling into it. It was somebody I knew what I was going to get from him.
It's just the worst. The character sucks. I hate everything about that character. You know, every moment before it's going to man, it's just the worst.
But you know, they couldn't afford Peter Sellers because Stanley Kubrick said when you hire Peter Sellers, you get 6 actors for the price of 12.
Right. We cut to a newspaper that reads, "Bank heist suspect caught. So was the rest of the gang." And as the camera pans down, we see that the newspaper is being held by Italian Bing Crosby, who can't figure out why the money wasn't blown up when the helicopter exploded. He decides he's going to sneak into the prison that's currently holding this banker using the invisibility serum and find out just what in tarnation is going on around here. We get to the prison. It looks like the Night's Watch castle. We get a great scene of invisible Bing Crosby stealing the keys to the prison cells and drinking the guard's tea right in front of him. It is an absolutely perfect scene.
It because especially with the tea being drank and everything, like it doesn't need to happen, but it does happen.
They're showing off.
It's really kind of cool. And the fact that
it's fun,
even the fact that the cup goes, like you're almost like looking through the back of his head as he drinks this when you think about it, because the cup is pouring out towards the camera. So we're technically looking through the back of his head while he's like, that's kind of a weird, freaky idea.
So guys, how do they do the tea gag?
Animation.
Yeah, well, I mean, depends on which shot we're looking at.
Yeah. But I mean, the with the tea coming out of the cup, that's animation.
The tea, yeah, the liquid portion is. So yeah, they can.
So they're just animating straight on the cell.
I think
yes,
so.
Probably
something along those lines. There were a couple of times where you could tell where they were probably double exposing on a couple of different things here and there.
There is that too. Yes.
I always wondered how they do all these things before you could just key out stuff. You know.
You know, Adam, I think that you might be right. That might be double exposure on the tea.
They're smart enough with that was one thing I was really surprised about is how decent, like, because when the gun is going around in wide shots and stuff, it's pretty stable. It's got a good, it doesn't have that kind of weird floaty all around and jiving up and down.
Three Stooges when they're fighting a ghost. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot better than that. It's not, it's not your Universal Monsters, Invisible Man stuff, but it ain't bad.
I think that there's moments with the gun specifically where I think it's on a glass dowel.
Oh, I'm sure of that because this is okay. So this is 1979, right? Or
67.
67. Okay. I'm trying to think when was so the only time that I can think of right off the top of my head where this kind of glass and the floating and everything was done is in 2001. Is that 64? Right. Trying to think of what. I forget the year, but I was just trying to figure out because that's the only time that I could think. Because that's when I was watching this of how smooth and everything is. That's what I felt that it had to have been on the plane.
But it's not always smooth. I mean, that's the kind of the fun of the movie.
Yeah. There's a few string movements, but there's a lot of what I thought was maybe glass plate.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In comparison to what it certainly could be, if this were an Ed Wood film, you know what I mean? Way different.
Yeah. Invisible Bing Crosby then goes to the banker's cell and questions him. But remember, the banker is actually Flashman in disguise. And he fools Invisible Bing Crosby into believing it was all that English bird's fault. And when Bing Crosby leaves, Flashman gets his fingerprints using some powder he just has on him while he's in prison. And then he immediately escapes. Invisible Bing Crosby starts to interrogate the British bird, and the sexual chemistry is so palpable and so hot, I had to open a window and turn on a box fan. They decide to team up and destroy Flashman, and Invisible Bing Crosby helps her escape from prison. Later, the bad guys meet up at a bar, and they come up with a diabolical plan that involves stealing all of the Maharaja's money and murdering him. But listening into their conversation is none other than Flashman and himself in yet another disguise. So Flashman goes to Scotland Yard, where we have to endure the soul-crushing, quote, humor, end quote, of Inspector Baxter again. You just feel parts of your soul leaving you as Flashman tells him about the Invisible Man and gives him proof as to who the bad guy is. But Inspector Baxter isn't having any of it because he sucks, and Flashman knocks him out by slightly tapping him on the forehead. And Flashman escapes by jumping out a window directly into his convertible and drives away.
This is
really, really cool
favorite
escape.
part. I love that he jumps out the window straight into the convertible, and it's a regular 1960s convertible. Just a car that you would get. It's beige. It's a beige convertible.
The tweaking of the nose was kind of a weird
That happens
touch.
way later. That happens later.
Oh, I thought it happened when we first met him there. Sorry.
But no, because that's Flashman who does it to him at the end.
Well, he does it when they first meet too. And then the invisible person does it, and then Flashman does it again. So there's 3 nose tweaks.
Oh, okay.
People be touching noses when they're invisible. You know that's how they do.
I will be totally honest. The Inspector Baxter scenes are so brutal to sit through for me that like I'm usually like putting down notes and like doing other things.
No. I'm sorry for even bringing it up. I'm sorry.
It's fine. We cut to the airport where Italian Bing Crosby, his goateed goon, and the English bird have already gotten on a flight for Beirut, where the Maharaja will be. Flashman shows up as his real persona, rich English guy. And seriously, I couldn't pick him out of a lineup if he was holding a sign that read, "I'm Flashman." He hands his sister some lollipops that make a loud warning noise if anything bad should happen. And they go on and on about these lollipops in a way where you as the viewer are absolutely certain they'll come up later, and they totally do. Flashman, sorry.
I just said it's like a cue James Bond moment there.
Aha. Flashman then runs into Inspector Baxter, who wants to arrest him because he looks a lot like that banker who escaped from jail the other day. And because Inspector Baxter sucks, so now the English rich guy has to get out of this, and he has Baxter called the Queen of England, which he does, and she tells Baxter not to arrest the English rich guy. Now, believe it or not, this isn't even the most outrageous part of this film. Flashman invites Baxter onto his private plane for a drink. The seats on the private plane are maybe the greatest seats I've ever seen. I want them. I need to have them. And like a scene out of the A-Team, Flashman drugs Inspector Baxter and flies him unconscious to Beirut.
It's just like, okay, our hero is, hey, how much you drink up there, buddy? First of all, he's not only just drugging him. He's like, he's forcing him the drugs. He's just like, hey, take this, drink it up. You know what you don't like to taste? Come on, girl, take a little sip. Oh,
and I got to tell you, at this point, I just can't wait to see what they try to pull off as a Lebanese person.
That is true. I think I was doing the same thing. That's funny.
Everything is very culturally appropriate in this film.
Baxter wakes up in a hotel room in an excruciating scene that takes 11 days. Inspector Baxter gets woken up, arrested, and as he's perp walking through the lobby of the hotel, he sees the English bird on the arm of the Maharaja, so he makes a fuss, which leads to absolutely nothing. As the English bird is using her feminine wiles on the Maharaja, Italian Bing Crosby walks in, invisible, of course, and chokes him out with a towel, forcing him to sign some papers that give Italian Bing Crosby all his money. And in another move that literally no one saw coming, the Maharaja dies of a heart attack before he can sign all of his worldly possessions over.
Unnecessary plot twist, but I'm all for it.
What? This isn't the Maharaja like time, right? Here in like the late 60s and everything. You got the Beatles, they're going to meet this cat and everything. And like
the Maharaja that the Beatles meet is just like a guy on top of a mountain in a diaper. I mean, he's not a wealthy guy like this. I mean, so that's why I was confused. I thought maybe I don't know what a Maharaja is. I'm not as into it as the Italians.
No, I certainly don't know. I'm just like, ain't that the guy the Beatles went to go see? Is all wrong?
I do feel kind of suspicious that guy wasn't really Indian and that wasn't really his daughter.
Get out of town.
Huh.
Maybe.
So Flashman tries to convince the Maharaja's extremely white and extremely hot daughter that if she doesn't do something, the English bird and Italian Bing Crosby are going to try to kill her father. In a good bit of acting I haven't seen since D'Onofrio and Men in Black, I'm serious about this. Invisible Bing Crosby is holding up the already dead Maharaja like some sort of marionette or Weekend at Bernie's and makes him sign the papers and shoot himself in the head in front of his guards and his daughter.
It was so cool. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I can't believe how you pulled it off and made it look interesting and neat. And what a great plot thing to just do. It was like, hey, we need to do this. Oh man, I was excited.
To me, the scene was stolen by the voiceover actor who's clearly someone else that is in an adjacent scene, and he panicked and didn't know what to do for a voice. So the security guard is, "Oh, you can't go in there." He's got the high-pitched Mickey Mouse voice on the security guard.
Didn't notice that one.
I thought it was such a great job by the actor. You know, I mean, it really looks like he's being held up by someone else.
He was very marionette and everything, and
he did a good job.
But it was also, enough to where if she was like, panicked outside of that room and just barely looking in, that's what she would have thought she saw. 100%. Yeah. She would have been like, oh yeah, I saw him kill himself. She wouldn't have thought, oh yeah, he looked like a weird, marionette puppet and everything. But no, she'd have been like, oh my gosh, yeah, that was totally him. And I love that. I thought that was so cool.
It's pretty awesome. The English bird runs away from the scene of the crime. Some things happen. Some shoe leather is worn, not super important. But then Flashman shows up at the scene of the crime, and he thinks of doing something that the Lebanese police didn't think about doing. He dusted the gun for fingerprints, and he compares it to the fingerprints of the Invisible Man's that he took with him all the way to Beirut, and he sees that it's a match with his own eyes, sees that the two fingerprints are a match. But the English bird shows up and she's got a gun pointed right at him. She shows him that this is no ordinary gun. This gun shoots acid. She pulls his mask off and realizes that the banker and Flashman are the same man, to which Flashman says the second best line of the movie: the real identity of Flashman is only known to corpses and friends. They start hardcore making out, and just and just before she could shoot Flashman, he judo chops her in the neck and she passes out. This movie is a big fan of judo chop to the neck, making the person pass out. It happens no less than 10 times in this film.
Not all of them particularly hard hits either, but it'll knock you straight out.
Straight out. The Lebanese cops hear this and break in the door, but not before Flashman and the Maharaja's daughter jump 10 stories into the hotel pool. And the English bird takes off in a helicopter, to which one of the Lebanese cops turns to another Lebanese cop and says, "Everyone's got a helicopter, even her." In the most outrageous part of this entire movie, they go to an actual site of actual ancient ruins and you see the stupid actors running around in these actual ancient ruins while the filmmakers are flying a helicopter directly overhead, destroying in 20 minutes what took French soldiers at least a decade to vandalize. If I was an archaeologist in 1967, I'd have flown to Italy just so I could walk up to the producers, point my finger in their face, and say, "It belongs in a museum." And then they would say back to me, "So do you." And then I would be able to check another box on my bucket list because, yes, I did just compare myself favorably to Harrison Ford. And yes, that is the goal, to get back to the film. The reason why the actors are running around these ancient ruins is because Flashman has what he calls a safe house here. But since the bad guys find it seconds after Flashman gets there, it is neither safe nor is it a house. It's a cave, really. And in order to make sure both the Maharaja's daughter and his sister are safe, he takes them to his safe house. But before his sister and this really hot Italian lady, who is pretending to be East Indian, have even settled in, Flashman leaves them by themselves so he can find more clues or something. Anyway, the bad guys, Invisible Bing Crosby and English Bird, show up seconds, literally seconds after Flashman leaves, and they force the Maharaja's daughter to sign a piece of paper saying they should totally get all of the Maharaja's money and set a trap that will explode the second Flashman walks back into his not-so-safe house, killing his sister and Flashman in the process.
Yeah, if they, I hate to tell them, but there's no. Anytime that you say, "Oh, the second that something happens," you mean like with the helicopter in the early scene there, that real fast bull crap. If somebody hits a button, it's gonna be 15 seconds before something goes off. The second he walks in, you just know that's a lie.
I do like some of the conversation between Flashman's sister and the heiress. I don't know what to call her. Her mother's supposed to be Polish. Her father's supposed to be a Maharaja. I'll call her the heiress. I can't remember her name, but she's lets her borrow some clothes. So she comments about those totally modular clothes, and she says, "Oh yeah, they get me all kinds of stairs at home, and to get a stair in London is quite something." Like she is really proud of being ogled.
Yeah, listen, man, it was the 60s, and that's the way you rebelled, was just dressed different than everybody else, and like the wackiness, the crazier the better. I mean, like, times the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Meanwhile, across town, I should say it like we're watching the Super Friends. Meanwhile, across town, Flashman is looking for clues at the shell company the bad guys are using to steal all of the Maharaja's loot. Flashman shows up, and a single guy wearing military surplus clothes is keeping guard of the place. And Flashman whips on him with a judo chop and a really hard shove. He finds a walk-in freezer, and when he opens the door, he sees the invisibility serum. But just as he reaches for it, the goateed goon from the beginning of the movie shoves Flashman into the freezer and locks the door behind him. A classic locked in the freezer scenario. Now look, at this point, I'm a massive Flashman fan, so I know he's getting out. But he immediately does so, leaving no time for suspense or even the question, how's Flashman going to get out of this one?
You never even question if he's cold. You don't even see him go, "Brr, I'm in here and I got to get out." Not even for a second.
Immediately, and I mean instantaneously, Flashman knows the in and outs of refrigeration technology. He pulls two wires, then he uses those two wires to short out the walk-in freezer. This makes the bad guys worry, because if the freezer's out, it could ruin the invisibility serum. So they have to go inside to check. But Flashman's nowhere to be found. Holy crap, he took the invisibility serum himself. And Flashman reintroduces these two thugs to a couple of his pals. They're called Left Fist and Right Fist because Flashman isn't very clever. He doesn't need to be. He's Flashman. We see Flashman leave the shell company, or should I say, we don't see him. Instead, we see 2 vials of serum tied to a piece of fishing line and a bundle of Flashman costume leave the building. And they're not even trying in this scene. That fishing wire is is swaying back and forth, and the serum is just like jangling around each other. It's pretty amazing.
That's some of my favorite. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
We tried to steady it, but they said that we fix it in post. Did they lie?
My favorite can-do attitude is coming up soon. I can't wait to get to it.
We then cut to the only part of this movie I find painful. Yep. We're in the middle of another Inspector Baxter scene. He's going on about being arrested when his hat mysteriously rises from the desk and gets placed gingerly on his head. Of course, we're not easily fooled. We know what it is. We know it's a ghost. But hold on a second. What's this? It's Flashman? Oh, I'm blown away. Flashman goes on to hand over the invisibility serum and the antidote, and he explains to Baxter and the chief of Beirut police that it was Italian Bing Crosby all along. Then Flashman leaves. The 2 cops argue over who should get the serum, and they break both vials, destroying the formula and the serum because Baxter sucks. We're back at Flash. Go ahead.
I prefer the idea that if you want to see them again, you have to tell them a story. It really is an anecdote that brings them back.
Oh.
Once upon a time.
Some Baxter level crap right there.
We're smiling ear to ear. If you're at home, he's smiling ear to ear, folks.
I'm really not. We're back at Flashman's secret safe house hidden under the ancient ruins, and his sister warns him of danger using one of those lollipops from the airport earlier that make the loud warning sound. Flashman defuses the bomb because he's awesome, and he unties his sister, who says the Maharaja's daughter is in trouble. Italian Bing Crosby and the English Bird are going to tie her to the train tracks at 7, which immediately fills me with questions. Questions like, why 7? And how the hell would Flashman's sister know what train tracks they're going to tie her to? And when did they take the Maharaja's daughter from the safe house? And when did they tell Flashman's sister what their plans were? Anyway, we're at the train tracks, and we watch a real stuntman jump off a bridge onto a moving train dressed as Flashman. And it's a pretty awesome stunt, because it's a real train.
I was impressed that they got a real train. I was really expecting this to be some Lionel train track stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah. Real train.
Yeah.
I like to think it's guerrilla style. They didn't have permission to use the train. They just told the guy to jump on it as it went by.
Oh man, that brings up some really bad memories about a movie they tried to shoot in Savannah.
Yeah, sorry.
But they did, like, there's so many things here where they were just like, they clearly just had some access to it, and they were like, this is production value. The ancient ruins is it, you know? Well, like, we got helicopters and we got access to this thing. This looks like we spent jillions of dollars and we spent $0 doing it. So that's why they did, you know?
It's pretty amazing.
It works.
I'll vamp for a minute while you find your spot, but okay.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I do like that it's a steam engine, so you know it's like a Tweetsy Railroad type train. Like, it's not an actual working train, because it would be way outdated by 67.
We see the Maharaja's daughter on the tracks, gently placed on the train tracks.
Barely an arm. She would have lost an arm. It's like, what? I mean, like, you're not dead. I mean, it sucks that you don't have your right arm.
I'm glad they did not risk this lady's life for this movie.
Me too, because that train is behind her for real when she's on those tracks.
Flashman's sister drives. That's fine.
Flashman's sister drives away in a car to tell the police what's happening, and the train is getting closer. The English Bird double crosses Italian Bing Crosby, steals his vial of invisibility serum from him, and judo chops him in the neck, knocking him out cold. Flashman jumps from the train and saves the Maharaja's daughter just before the train rolls over her. And just as he does that, the English Bird starts shooting at him and runs off. Flashman gives chase. The English Bird runs to a tanker ship, cuts herself on a railing, tries to drop a car on Flashman, which is a really awesome scene, and she takes the invisibility serum, turning her into the Invisible Bird. She begins taking off her clothes that she'll be totally invisible. And now I know why the writers wrote into the script that everybody has to take their clothes off as they're taking the formula to be completely invisible. Now, due to her cut from earlier, Flashman follows the trail of blood drops and follows her to a boat pier. Does a boat chase begin? You're damn right it does. This is an Italian movie. There's going to be a boat chase. Now, this boat chase goes on for a long time, but at one point, the boats go from real boats to cute little model boats.
Yeah.
Yes.
And due to a fire on the water caused by the invisible bird, Flashman decides he's going to do the only sensible thing someone could do in this situation. He begins parasailing to get over the fire.
Talk about having access to something and gotta shoehorn it into your movie. Like, they find a weird way to justify parasailing, but I do love the can-do attitude when the remote control boat has like the little army figure with the toy parachute dangling behind it. Oh, I love everything about the can-do attitude of, we got to do a bunch of pyro in a boat. We can't do that in real life, so we're going to do this in a koi pond in our backyard.
It's so adorable. Like it's like watching the Land of Make Believe in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That's really what it felt like. As soon as this happens, the boat and Flashman turn into cute little models. The boat explodes, but Flashman does make it over the fire. The invisible bird runs her boat ashore, where she is immediately run over with a car by Italian Bing Crosby and then shot dead, literally immediately. Flashman shows up like 30 seconds after this happens, and Italian Bing Crosby starts throwing explosives at Flashman. But in my favorite moment of the movie, Flashman throws a fishing net over Italian Bing Crosby. Just as he's about to throw another explosive, Italian Bing Crosby gets caught up in the net and explodes. Just then, the cops show up and Flashman runs away.
He's booking it.
Doesn't he parasail away?
He eventually
does. First, he runs away. He eventually goes back to parasailing. He runs away.
You don't see enough of the superhero exploding the villain at the end of movies these days.
It's true.
That explosion was boss too. Good, like that. The only time they had the good editing was during that explosion, because they go to like, you're there for the dummy for like half a second before the explosion. Like, good timing on that one, which makes me mad because it's just like, bro, you couldn't get that helicopter scene right. You got this one right. What gives?
They only had one dummy, so they didn't want to risk it until it was the payoff scene.
I guess
we got to get this dummy throughout the entire movie. A few minutes later, Inspector Baxter screws around for a minute or two at the crime scene, and Flashman decides he's going to start parasailing again, only this time tied to a Jeep. He, his sister, and Maharaja's daughter all decide it's time to go home to London, but they're going to have to pick up Baxter first. So Flashman hooks Baxter up off the beach and starts parasailing with him and force him to involuntarily parasail off the back of a Jeep as the credits roll. The end.
That last bit looks super dangerous for the second guy who's like dangling there on the end of the parasail.
It's insanely so. Like the way that his body was, like you could tell by his body language that it was very, very dangerous what they were doing.
Because there's a lot of slack in that rope and everything. So he's dangling, and I think he was upside down.
Did they gain anything by having him parasail off at the end? I mean, could he have just jumped in the back of the Jeep and
his cousin owned a parasailing company, Bruce?
But they already used it.
It's in the script.
He owned it.
Got to make it.
We had access to that for a couple of days. So, when in Rome, set it on fire, I think. I think that's the Italian way for all of this stuff.
I think they needed the close-up of there's just like a strong tree branch with the rope tied to it, and you have the actor playing Baxter just holding on and like swinging and acting like he's being dangled and like screaming in fear. They needed that one cheesy close-up to sell it to me.
Well, I don't know why they're not using green screen, because they're using green screen on the old Batman TV show.
This is Italy.
Right, but I mean, it's not like that technology is completely unheard of in Italy at the time. It's not like it was like high-end special effects on Batman.
Well, I
Yeah,
did do a little bit of research, and the color green was not introduced to Italy until 73.
that makes
Oh, I
sense.
see.
They
Good
were doing
research.
brown screens, and it just didn't
We
work
are
very
not
well.
taking the screens. Anyways, all right. Before we get to our final review of this Italian masterpiece, we have to ask ourselves how it relates back, how this 1967 superhero film from Italia relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh,
Ciao bella, Mr. Stallone. I'm not sure how much you know about Italy, but it's pretty amazing. I hear they got pasta over there, a style of meatballs called, get ready for this, Italian style meatballs. It's pretty good. They also make movies over there, and lots of those movies are awful. Just look at the subgenre for Jaws knockoffs. 99 out of 100 will be Italian made. This week's movie, Flashman, is another knockoff, but it's a knockoff of the old Batman TV series, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's amazing. The guy who wrote the movie is Ernesto Gastaldi, and while he wrote over 120 movies during his career with names like Death Walks at Midnight, Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key, and Death Walks on High Heels, he also wrote movies that I really like, such as My Name is Nobody, Flashman, and he has an uncredited role as writer on Once Upon a Time in America, which is Sergio Leone's 6-hour-long movie that made Jennifer Connelly a star. She was 14 years old when she made that movie, and uncomfortable conversations were had across America at that time. But also, Sergio Leone was absolutely driven to make this movie perfect. He interviewed with over 3,000 actors for his opus. And one of those actors was you, Mr. Sylvester Stallone. You ended up losing the role to Robert De Niro, so I'm sure you weren't butthurt about it. I mean, it's like getting kicked off your bowling team because they've replaced you with Walter Ray Williams Jr. Pause until Adam and Bruce are done praising the brilliance of Walter Ray Williams Jr. And I'm going to say something that may be controversial, but I've seen Once Upon a Time in America twice. Once with the original studio cut, which is like 90 minutes long, and I watched the entire 6-hour-long version. And I'm going to be honest here, I don't like the movie. I never have. I think you might have gotten away with one there, Mr. Stallone. The studio cut is strangely put together, and the 6-hour version is 6 hours. But it's not Ernesto Gastaldi's fault. He only wrote the dang thing. He didn't shoot it. And there you have it. This week's Stallone connection is none other than writer Ernesto Gastaldi. I hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, the Hartford Hellion.
man, if you got a vowel in the last bit of that name, there's a decent enough chance you're going to have some sort of connection till Sylvester Stallone says I. All right, here at H&P, we have our own patented Robin rating system. Bruce, where does Flashman from 1967 fall in the Robin rating system for you?
I'm a little different than Sean. I think I had more fun talking about it than actually watching it. I think I would have enjoyed it more if I had watched it with somebody to like have some of that conversation in real time. But it's still, as much as I love this era of Italian cinema and, the knockoff stuff, I also like the horror stuff, the giallo stuff. I love it all. So this is pretty middle of the pack for me. Which isn't a bad thing. It's just I don't think I liked it as much as Sean did, but still worth a watch. It's on YouTube, costs you nothing. I'm gonna just go straight down the middle, Damian Wayne.
All right, that's fair enough, Sean.
This is a Dick Grayson for me all day. I mean, this is my style of movie, man. This is like it's the thing that Red Letter Media, there it is, take a drink. Red Letter Media says all the time, where it keeps surprising you with its craziness, this movie. Like over and over again, you think, oh, okay, so this is where we're going to start to get bored. And then something bananas happens yet again and again and again. So for that reason alone, it's a Dick Grayson.
Yeah, it's a good time. It is very weird and interesting. And it's wild to see what the Italians were doing in 1967 and stuff. Like I said, Superman hadn't hit yet at this point. So,
right.
So like this is like, and it's not wholly cheap, It doesn't
Right.
look like it's, put together for a nickel. It's not the most expensive thing in the world, but it doesn't look like they skimped. I mean, it looks like they really were, say what you will for the Italians and their, let's call it what it is, thievery. They don't half-ass it, really. They do their best with what they have. It's not always, it doesn't always translate. It doesn't always hit the goal that it's supposed to, but they tend to, it feels like there's at least a little bit of passion behind there, even though it's a passion for someone else's project, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like they made a really good thing. I think that we could take the good majority of those elements and pass them off as our own. And then sell them back to them. That's the best part too. Is they were specifically doing it to sell it back to the American market, which we already had this stuff. Thanks, but no thanks.
I mean, the only problem this movie really has is that because they're basically trying to sell this to back to the American market, like you're saying, but you're not going to outdo 1966 Batman for being 1966 Batman. Like, there's nothing more of that. Like, the reason why that show still holds up is because it's the prime of the kind of thing it's trying to be.
Singular, for sure.
Right. It's totally singular on that.
I think this is I'm sorry to interrupt. It's your time.
Please.
I just think this is like, you've already seen Batman. You want more of that. There's not more of that. We're going to trick you into seeing this, or this is the drive-in that needs something to pair in a double feature with it, or for the drive-in that can't afford the rights to show Batman, but they can afford this. I think that a lot of that comes into play. This is the equivalent of direct to video before direct to video.
And you can't do the wild art direction and stuff like Batman does. So you hoist it all onto one character with the little sister and everything, and say, oh, you're gonna be the mod. You're gonna dress, and you're gonna represent the new hip crap that we just can't. We don't have the budget to do for everything like like Batman does.
Batman can't blow up. He can't explode the Joker at the end like Flashman can.
Yeah, that's for sure, right. Dude. That was a really dope ending there. I didn't know if I said it or not. Tim Drake, if I didn't. But yeah,
dang.
I enjoyed this well enough. It's a good little time. And again, for a movie that you didn't really know existed and everything, it could be a lot worse than it is too.
I'm just so shocked by it. I think that's why I'm giving it such a high rating. I did not expect this at all. What I was really kind of expecting is in the doldrums of Shaun Like Spaceships, where like there was those two movies that I didn't know what they really were. I was just like, oh man, there's a space movie and it's got Wilford Brimley in it. I'm in. Like I don't even have to think about this one and how boring that movie really was. This is the opposite of that, and the amount of fun I had watching this movie is kind of off the charts just because of how surprising it was.
Yeah, it works for it in there. It's available on YouTube right now, so check that out wherever you find YouTube. See, because it's only in one place. Everywhere except for I saw a lot of great posters while I was like looking for some art and everything for this. Italians are fantastic with art. There's a lot of really there's other interesting ones. There's more than two. There's a good many out there that are like strange and odd and
I gotta check that
very
out.
very cool kind of direction stuff. But yeah, so that is it for this episode. We'll talk about what we're doing next week in just a moment. But Bruce, plug something for us. Talk about something. What do you think? Tell the people. It's your moment to speak to the world. What wisdom are you going to impart on them?
Well, there's a couple of shorts in the works that I'll have to talk about hopefully within the next month or two. But other than that, I'm just going to say, go to YouTube and just check out some of my old anime stuff.
So what you're saying is award-winning filmmaker Bruce Leslie has another project in the pipeline.
Well, I have one project where all I have to do is be the boom operator, so I like that.
Hey, a project is a project, my friend.
Yeah, and then I got another one that's 100% BLP, Bruce Leslie Productions. That I'm working on.
Don't step back. By the way. But like, I hate to bring this up on the show, but like a slight bone of contention here. How are you not Prickly Pear Productions, for crying out loud?
Because I literally just came up with our historic way of picking names. Like as I'm almost finished with the film, I'm like, I got to come up with something. But yeah, Prickly Pear Productions works. It's wide open. My kids want to call it Triple Fried for their reasons. So
yeah, I like that. That's a good one too. I do like that. But yeah, I was just like, how is it not Prickly Pear Productions right off the bat? I thought, could have sworn.
The nice thing is, I'm not such a huge deal that would be difficult to change the name of it.
He's a wrestler that goes to another region and just changes a little bit of stuff. And Sean, what else?
Here I'm Cactus Jim. We've got another podcast called 30 Questions, where we ask 30 questions of some nerdy property. Your Marvel, your Star Wars. There's other stuff too. Just check that out. It's in your podcatcher of choice. I promise.
Coming up next week and next month as a whole here over at HMP, we've got ourselves another little theme going on. March is upon us, and as such, we're going to be doing the March of Time and doing time travel movies. We've each got a movie set up for this week. If you'd like to hear us kind of go through all of our process and everything, why don't you go to patreon.com/HMP and listen to the episode. You'll know what happens for all of the month of March. You'll know ahead of advance, so you can watch those movies in advance and get a little leg up on everybody else. So patreon.com/HMP. So we've decided time travel movies, and we're going to start out with a movie that, oddly enough, giving so many different factors about myself, I was surprised that I haven't seen, so I put it on the list as something to get off of there, is Time Bandits. Time Bandits is a classic that it feels like everybody has seen, but for whatever reason or another, I have not yet seen that movie. So we're putting that on the docket. That's available on, I'm fairly certain it's on the Criterion Channel, fairly certain it's on probably HBO as well. You can find that in a lot of different places and stuff. They want you to see Time Bandits, I can tell you that much. And we want you to see Time Bandits and join us back here next week as well. That'll do it for us. For the Hartford, Helly, and Sweet Sounds of Kovacs from the Internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Anna Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.